their families that to sell up those lands. When these guys come back from those victorious campaigns, they've got nothing left. Or maybe they still have their farm when they get back, but when they get back, they find they can't compete. They've got to sell those lands, and who gets them? The aristocrats. These things just get bigger and bigger. Yeah, they lose their lands. They're lucky if that aristocrat gives them a job, and you think he's going to? No, because who's he got working that land for him? He's got all those slaves that these soldiers have brought back. So he takes the slaves from them, he takes their land from them. Now these peasant farmers, what do? They really got nowhere to go. They got to go to the city, find work, whatever. And this affects Rome negatively, not only socially, but politically and militarily as well. You see, by tradition, what do Roman citizens have to possess to vote in the assemblies and to serve in the military? They have to have a lot of land. So this, the development, the rise in latifundia, affecting very negatively Rome, not just socially, but politically and militarily as well. And what Tiberius is going to argue, Rome's problems, these problems can only be remedied, social, political, military, economic, and everything else. These problems can only be remedied by reinstituting the small peasant farmer, put him back on his farm. So what he's going to do, he's going to put together a land redistribution program, legislation that actually passes through the assembly. It becomes law. What he's going to do, he's going to take land away from those rich, wealthy aristocrats and give that land back to the small peasant farmers. Put them back on their farms. He'll put a commission together to put this reform program into effect. Now, there is a problem. It's one thing to pass legislation, and one of the privileges of the tribune, they not only have the power to block legislation, veto any decisions made by the Senate or consuls or anybody else, they have the privilege of introducing legislation. But it's one thing to pass laws, make this redistribution program a law. It's another thing actually to do what? To actually go out there and do it and take that land physically away from those powerful aristocrats. What's going to happen in response to this reform program, reactionary senators themselves, large landowners, they control these latifundia, members of the senatorial aristocracy. They're going to take matters into their own hands, fearing that such a redistribution program would mean considerable loss of prestige and power for themselves. They will take the law into their own hands, and they will assassinate Tiberius and about 300 of his supporters. The very people sworn to uphold the law have broken it to protect their own interests. A clear indication of the corruption, the greed setting in Rome in the late Republic. All right, well, any questions about Tiberius, Latifundia? Yeah, the senatorial aristocracy. Yeah, members of the Senate and their fellow aristocrats will rise up against Tiberius, assassinate him along with roughly 300 of his supporters. Yeah, again, the very people sworn to uphold the law have broken it to protect their interests.
He just said how he got assassinated?
How exactly? Motive, assassination. I'm not exactly sure what they cut him down. I guess with a sword or something. I'm not exactly sure exactly how they killed the guy. His assassination was actually in 132 BC. I'm not exactly sure in what way. I don't know if it's actually mentioned in the ancient sources. But yeah, they will assassinate him in 132. Assassinate while he's still serving as tribune. In 132, assassinate Tiberius and roughly 300 of his supporters. Now, they did assassinate him. They did assassinate roughly 300 of his supporters. But one guy they failed to eliminate, his little brother. Tiberius had a little brother by the name of Gaius. G-A-I-U-S, if you want, Gaius Gracchus. They call these guys the Gracchi brothers. The Gracchi, if you want, G-R-A-C-C-H-I, the Gracchi brothers, Gaius Gracchus. Well, 10 years after his brother had been elected tribune, in 123, little brother, in 123 BC, little brother Gaius will be elected tribune. And like his brother before him, he'll look to carry out a reform program. And his program, even more extensive than his big brothers had been. In addition to carrying out his brother's land redistribution program, he also wants to, and you don't have to get these details down, but to illustrate just how extensive his program was, he wants to extend citizenship rights to all people living on the Italian peninsula, not just people in Lake. He wants to stabilize grain prices for the benefit of the peasants. He wants to give equestrians, wealthy plebeians, he wants to give equestrians more judicial and political power and responsibility. He actually gets that job done. Well, in response to these reforms of Gaius, they're even more extensive, much more extensive than Big Brothers. What are the senators going to do you think? As they had with his brother, reactionary senators, again, fearing that this reform program, and certainly it was going to do this, in considerable loss of power and prestige for themselves, they will once again take the law into their own hands, and they will assassinate Gaius and roughly 3,000 of his supporters. And Gaius, actually, we do know about his death. He actually takes his own life while the assassins are closing in, following his sword. But in any case, Gaius, along with roughly 3,000 of his supporters, will be assassinated. So, once again, those people sworn to uphold the law have broken roughly 3,000. The numbers vary a bit in the ancient sources, anywhere between 1,000 to 3,000. But yeah, as many as 3,000 of his supporters will be assassinated. And from this point forward, the Roman Republic was never the same again. From this point forward, anyone seeking reform clearly recognizes, realizes that the legal means of bringing about this reform will only result in what? Will only result in death. And so the only effective way then to bring forth reform, these people now recognize, is through force. As a result, Rome will soon see, as a result of the experience of the Gracchi brothers, Rome will soon see during this century, soon see the rise of powerful military leaders who are going to use their armies for political purposes. As a result of the example set by the Gracchi brothers, Rome will see during this century of revolution the rise of powerful military leaders. We'll see in just a moment powerful military leaders who will use their armies for political purposes. The result has suggested a series of civil wars, 3 of them. We'll highlight each of them separately. 3 of them that will culminate in the final collapse of the Republic in 30 BC, result in the subsequent establishment of the empire. And the rise of powerful military leaders using their arms for political purposes. The result, a series of civil wars. Romans killing Romans, 3 of them, resulting in the final collapse of the Republic in 30 BC, and the subsequent establishment of the empire. All right, well, so any other questions about the Gracchi, these guys? Oh, and I do have, did the mod for it first. A question about the Gracchi? Well, we're going to look at them, yeah, and we're going to see what we're going to see. Those powerful military leaders, some of the more famous names in Roman history. Guys like Julius Caesar will use their armies for political purposes. Guys like Mark Antony, yeah, these guys. We'll see the rise of those famous names in Roman history during this period, using their armies. Caesar, Mark Antony, Pompey the Great, and others, using as they battle one another for control of the Roman state and the privilege of carrying out. Yeah. All right. Well, so good. Anything else? All right. Let's take a look. Civil War number 1. We don't have any names. They're just called civil wars of this revolution. But I'll put it under Civil War number 1. While attention in Rome in the late decades of the 2nd century BC was focused on the struggle between the Senate and these Gracchi brothers, Roman armies, in the meantime, they're still out there campaigning. They're on the Roman frontiers, winning victories, adding land to the Roman Empire. In fact, during those last couple of decades of the 2nd century BC, lands in southern France, from the Alps to the Pyrenees, this business in Greek and Odyssey, but this will be added to the Roman state. After victories here, Rome will soon become involved in a struggle in Numidia. I'll speak about Numidia a little bit before. If you want for geography, Numidia, and you have Idia, this kingdom here in northern Africa, the northern coast of Africa, bordering on Carthage. An old ally of Rome, had been allied with Rome since the Second Punic War, many decades. But what's going to happen in 118 BC, you don't need all the dates and all the details, I'll give them to you if you want. What's going to happen in 118 BC, the king of Numidia will die. And upon his death, a civil war will break out in his kingdom as his 3 sons battle one another for control. Kind of an interesting